WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint, where power and politics collide and the tough questions get asked and answered.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. The North Carolina General Assembly on the verge of sending two big bills to the governor's desk after years of debate. This week, the North Carolina House set to take a final vote on expanding Medicaid. The bipartisan measure looking to bring affordable health insurance to about 600,000 people. Also getting support from Democrats and Republicans alike is sports betting. It would let folks bet on college, pro, Olympic sports right on their phone. In a minute, we'll speak to one of the main sponsors of that bill. But first, a really special guest for this Women's History Month. Joining us now, the 73rd governor of the great state of North Carolina, Bev Perdue. Also, we should say, the first and only female governor we've had. She's now the chair of the National Assessment Governing Board. Governor, thanks for coming back on Flashpoint. We appreciate it.
Good morning, Ben. It's nice to be back on your program, and it's nice to be back with my Charlotte buddies.
That's right. You know, I look back at our archives. I think it's been like 13 years since we've had you on this program. So it's been a while. Long overdue, long overdue. Let me ask you, 10 years after you left office, are you surprised you are still the only woman in the governor's mansion? And not only that, but there's not been women really in the governor's race. It's been mainly a boys' club since then. Are you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised because we haven't done a real good job across the state, Republicans or Democrats, of growing our bench. But right now in the North Carolina legislature, there are a couple of women, one from Charlotte and one from New Raleigh, who I predict can be major state players. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm there to help them. And, you know, if they need a good mentor, I'd like to be that for them.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and put you on the spot. Name names. Who do you think could run in that big race?
Well, and from your area, I'm not going to name names because You've got a new legislator right there who's not new. She came back, and I think she's very connected and very well storied in how you get things done for the people of Charlotte and North Carolina. And then the other woman I'm talking about comes from the Triangle. And she's fabulous. She's well trained. She comes from a political family. She's got the pedigree and the strength, I think, to go for the goal. It's just about doing it all. It goes back to how it was for me. You have to make choices. You cannot do it all. I don't think any woman thinks you can. So you've got to give up something. You give up your friends. I put mine aside for 10 years, 15 years while I was in politics. Or you give up your family, and I wasn't going to do that. So you can't be all things to all people, and you actually don't succeed as well at doing it all.
Let's talk about some issues. Education's always been a big priority for you. I know it remains so, especially when it comes to education and making sure kids have access to the internet. Never has that been more important than in the past few years. Some would say you were out front on this. What can local and state leaders do to help get students back up to speed post-pandemic?
Well, the scores are abysmal. You know, that's the board that I chair nationally. Yesterday, I read, I can't remember the name, one of the states in America decided the answer to kids doing so poorly on the tests was to dumb down the tests and lower the scores. That's not the answer. You can lower the scores all you want, but your kids still aren't going to be able to be proficient. The internet is part of the answer, obviously. I've worked for 15, 20 years to make it accessible all over the state, including in inner city Charlotte and the rural parts of Mecklenburg County. But that hadn't happened. So I think elected leaders, I would hold elected leaders to a no hands barred kind of conflict. It's the same kind of dilemma that faced America in the 30s and 40s with electricity. The internet is basic infrastructure, basic utilities. So that has to be a given. I think it should be free. I don't believe in the way it's being funded now. I think it's prohibitive for some families. So if you do that, you have to have good teachers. You know the formula. But we really do need to, I continue to say this, it's kind of freaky. If you have a kid at the end of third grade who cannot read and count at some kind of higher grade level, then I think the kid is destined to failure. And so we have to do whatever we can, however we can one-on-one or tutor or work with kids all across the state to make sure that by the time they leave third grade, they can read and count. And that would change the trajectory, not just of North Carolina's future workforce, but if it was done across the country's workforce.
There's been claims that folks, especially across the aisle from you, have done things to undermine the public education system. Do you share that belief?
I'm really concerned, as I think most parents and grandparents are, with the social issues that have begun to prioritize educational discussion in Raleigh and across the counties. I'm concerned. I don't believe that the whole litmus test around some kind of cultural or social ideology should dominate the basic skill set our kids need. And I don't like what's happening with some foul legislation that speak to that, the culture wars. I am really concerned about the concept of electing state school board members across the state. Sometimes it becomes so partisan that I wonder if that's the right answer for our kids. I've always thought that the governor should be the educational decision maker, the guide for education in the state, and should stand for that in every election or re-election. Let the people throw that person out, but let that person appoint the state superintendent of education. Our current state superintendent's doing a great job. I really admire her leadership on competency and trying to change some of the ways we have funded education. So it's not against her I speak, it's just against the embedded political history of North Carolina.
Some people might forget, but when you were governor, we were in the middle of the Great Recession across the country that our country was struggling with. When you were governor, the Affordable Care Act was passed, and I combed through our archives, and it looked like you never took a firm position on expanding Medicaid. And we know that's been a big issue for years now, and it looks like it might be poised to pass. More than 10 years later, do you think, considering everything that's happened, hundreds of thousands of people still have gone without affordable health care in this state, do you wish you would have pushed harder, even though knowing it was really at the end of your term, to get something done with Medicaid expansion?
No, Ben, I would think your archives might be not fully complete. One of the most, I think, courageous things I did at the very end of my administration was try to embed Medicaid reform in the State Budget Act. I tried to do it by myself as the governor because the General Assembly refused to work with me or talk to me about Medicaid reform. I think it's been a bridge uncrossed for more than 12 years, and it's cost the state hundreds of millions of dollars because we haven't participated. But primarily, it's cost hundreds and thousands of people in North Carolina to go without adequate health care. I am so excited that this year they've come to what appears to be a compromise. I think regardless of the track record of what they did and slapping me down and slapping what I was trying to do around Medicaid reform down, now they've come to a place where they can work with the governor and move forward on health insurance for everybody in the state. I think that's marvelous. It's a benchmark of this century.
Do you sometimes wish you would have run for re-election?
Yeah, I do. It's probably my biggest regret, although I live my life these days loving the private sector and, the things I'm doing in the private sector. But as you look back, you do have regrets, and I try not to think about the regrets. I should have run. I was naive and didn't realize that the angst and the animosity was just against the political system, not against me, the individual. I actually thought if I got out, it would all smooth out and North Carolina could go forward the way it always have. That was rather infantile and naive. And I regret that. I wish I'd run again. I wish I were young enough to put my name in the ring again.
The current GOP majority happened while you were in Raleigh. Are you surprised they are still in power?
No, I'm not surprised. I've been around long enough as a Democrat and watching Democrats and Republicans to know the power of redistricting. As long as the census allows North Carolina to continue to grow, and it will. We're a huge popular state. People will continue to move here. There will be millions that come here. And so the districts have to be redrawn. So every 10 years, the General Assembly, whoever is in power, gets to be king or queen. And that's the way the country's run these days and for 200 years until we change that fundamental way. We divide up the state, apportion the state for apportioned representatives. There will always be one party that dominates, and that's the party that dominates in that 91, 2021, 2031 year when the districts are redrawn. And it looks to me like it still might be Republican. Who knows? A lot can change between now and next year, or now and tomorrow, much less the end of this decade. We hope so.
Are you confident that Democrats can keep the governor's race next year? I know the current governor's not going to be running, but we already know some of the names that have been thrown around. Do you feel like Democrats can keep the governor's office?
I think the people of North Carolina are just the best barometer of what can happen. I've always put my faith in the people. I think you'll get the candidates out there. I hope to see a Democrat win. I certainly am supporting Josh Stein, but it's not over till it's over. And there's a lot of things that can happen that will maybe put new candidates in. I've talked to a couple of Republicans who are thinking about throwing their hat in the ring. And so I think it's going to be wonderful to see a new generation. This will be a new generation of leadership. It'll look different, feel different, and sound different, I hope, to address the different needs of this growing, beautiful state we live in.
The 73rd governor of North Carolina, Bev Perdue. Governor, thanks for coming on and chatting with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
All right, Governor, thanks. More Flashpoint after this.